Who is this? Okay, what about this panel? Or this one? See, I showed some of these to some friends, and only a few could notice something was off. If any of those didn't make you suspicious, then what about this one? I know it looks like Guts is ready to talk about his ninja way, but this is not Guts. And this is not Berserk, but actually Katsuji Yashima from a 9-chapter manga called Japan. 1992 is the year. By this point, Kentaro Miura had a few years working Berserk, the prototype in 1988, and by 1992, the original Volume 4 of Berserk would be released February of that year. With a total of 8 chapters being released, the very end the prologue chapters of Golden Age and then the first 5. Art-wise, he is much improved from where we were in the Black Swordsman arc, but this is still the early stage of what would become the most recognizable versions of Guts, Casca, and Griffith, at least for the Golden Age arc. Most fans' knowledge of Miura starts and stops with Berserk. Hell, from what I've heard, apparently newer fans are accused of not even reading it, which hurts my soul. But in 1985, he released a one-shot titled Repeat, which won an award for Best New Author in Weekly Shonen Magazine. Little did they know, but in 1992, he worked as an artist for Japan. This is the key distinction. He didn't write for it, just illustrated. We'll get into it in a bit, but believe me, it makes a huge difference. The author was Buronson. My brain went to the next as well. I'm curious if any of you did this. Anyways, that's just the pen name. He's also known as Yoshiyuki Okamura. Still doesn't ring a bell? Well, he worked on Fist of the North Star and a whole lot of other works. Seriously, the man has enough to give each nickname he went by feel like their own person. Quick break to shout out today's sponsor, Figurama Collectors. They've just revealed something insane. The first Kishin Kitarinu Elite Solo statue of its kind. The newest entry in their Elite Solo line. This isn't just another statue either. It's a once-in-a-lifetime collaboration with Yoshitaka Amano himself, the legend behind some of the most iconic art in anime and gaming history. And here's what makes it even crazier. This is Figurama's first ever 2D to 3D conversion. They've taken one of Amano's ethereal illustrations and brought it to life as a full 3D statue, something that's never been done before at this level. You've got the flowing translucent cape, the engraved armor, and the whole piece just radiates that dreamlike Amano style. But here's where the FOMO kicks in. Every statue comes with a limited edition art print signed by Amano himself. That's right, signed. Once they're gone, they're gone. And right now there are less than 300 left, so time is running out. Use my code TMKSN for $35 off. Trust me, this is one of those collectibles that disappears instantly, so don't sleep on it. So what is Japan about? Well, Japan is a manga, to say the least. If you type that it's actually a country, I'm going to skull fuck. Yuka Katsuragi is a well-known TV reporter. She's also caught the eye of Katsuji Yashima, a hot-headed Yakuza type who isn't exactly subtle about his feelings. Determined to win her over, Katsuji and his brother follow her all the way to Spain, only for Yuka to shut him down cold. But before anyone can head home, disaster strikes. Massive earthquake tears through the area. In the chaos, Katsuji, his brother, Yuka, and a group of Japanese high school students on a field trip are swallowed deep beneath the earth. Down in the dark, they stumble across an old woman who seems to know more than she should. She warns them that Japan, rich and powerful as it is now, is heading towards the same ruin that once wiped out the ancient city of Carthage. Of course, they do what any reasonable person would do and laugh at her. The woman decides to give them a first-hand look at what's coming, sending them into a vision of Japan's future. A land stripped bare, drowning in poverty and death. A near-future political drama where Japan goes to shit, unrest breaks out, and the country finds itself at the mercy of foreign powers. Because in true early 90s manga fashion, the story escalates from slightly dystopian to full-on nationalistic fever dream. In other words, the Japanese in a post-apocalyptic world, Miura illustrating this, makes total sense. One of his biggest inspirations for his works being Fist of the North Star, and for films, he was a big fan of Mad Max. It is worth noting this isn't the only manga these two would work on together. Previously worked on King of Wolves, which was released in 1989. Once again related to time travel, but this time to the past, and instead of a slightly uglier Yakuza version of Guts, we get Ponytail Guts, who's trying to save his lover who's been taken away and wheeled, and Guts if he was a Saiyan or Violence Jack. Surely I'm not the only one seeing the same face syndrome here, right? But what I find really interesting is the Chinese setting, and the surface concepts of the character dynamics feel more like a Kingdom prototype at times. Despite only 3 chapters, King of Wolves actually felt like a far more satisfying story to read, and had a really cool idea for its ending that made it more memorable than Japan. 2 lovers find themselves in the past, and after some struggle, the male lead, Iba, finds himself working under the legendary Genghis Khan, who wants to then kill Iba and take his girl and child for himself. Even though Genghis probably had a few hundred children up to that point, but anyways. This of course leads to conflict where Iba defeats Genghis, who then commits seppuku because of honor and dishonor. which leaves Iba to maintain history by becoming the new Genghis Khan, hence the title King of Wolves, leaving Kyoko, his lover, in the present with no one else to know the truth. Going back to Japan, however, we follow Katsuji dealing with the state of the Japanese people being treated as outcasts and having to preserve the life of his friends while learning more about the awful state of things, building up and gathering his forces to fight against the evil Europeans. As hard as I tried to like each chapter I read, I was trying to get invested into something and I couldn't. The art was cool, but there was nothing really here for me in terms of the characters, and that very well might have been intentional to make sure the message of the story is the only thing you take away. It also didn't help that I watched the South Park episode of City Walk vs. City Sushi, so reading this became a lot funnier than intended. The story of Japan eventually barrels towards its big finale. Ugly bastard Guts, who started the story chasing after a girl way out of his league, ends up as one screaming about saving the entirety of a nation, the new state of Japan. In this bleak future where Japan has basically been wiped off the map and its people are scattered across the globe, he decides he's the guy to pull everyone together and fight back. It's the kind of ending where the fist gets clenched, speech gets made, and suddenly you're meant to believe that this delinquent gangster is going to lead Japan out of the apocalypse. Subtle, not at all, entertaining, And that's really how Japan wraps up. That's it. There's not really much to talk about here, unfortunately. It's loud, it's dramatic, and it's very 90s. The whole thing reads like a nationalist fever dream mixed with Mad Max, and instead of feeling prophetic, it feels pulpy. If Berserk was Miura working through fate, trauma, and humanity's darkest urges, Japan is Brunson yelling about the Japanese spirit while Miura draws the explosions. And look, sometimes yelling works, but it's not completely elegant. So what do I think? It's fine. Pretty okay. Honestly, it's pretty bad. Nothing I'd call an essential read. Do I necessarily think it's a waste of time either? I don't know. Miura's art is definitely cool to check out and flip through and see his style outside of Berserk and in other settings, but even then there's a lot of things that still carried over into Berserk in terms of character designs and style, so even then, So you get to catch little glimpses of where his Berserk style was heading, but nothing outside of that. So to me, this is more of a curiosity piece than anything. And that's kind of the point. This is not Berserk. It's just Japan. And honestly, I mentioned it earlier, if you are going to check out either collaboration between Brunson and Miura, just check out King of Wolves. But that's all. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a blessed rest of the day, and peace.